Have you ever seen someone so sure of themselves, so arrogant that they thought belittling someone else made them more powerful? Well, this is the story of one businessman who thought mocking an old man in a restaurant was funny until the tables turned and he got the lesson of his life. Stick around, because what happened next left the entire restaurant in stunned silence, and it's a story you'll never forget. It was a chilly evening in the heart of the city, the kind of night where the warm glow of a restaurant feels like a safe haven from the rush outside. Inside, waiters moved quickly from table to table, balancing trays, serving dishes that smelled of garlic, butter, and roasted meat. At one corner table sat an old man. His clothes were simple, worn at the edges, and his hands carried the marks of years of labor. He wasn't flashy, didn't have jewelry or expensive accessories, and he didn't order much, just a bowl of soup and a cup of black coffee. He sat quietly, sipping slowly, almost as if the meal itself was enough to remind him of simpler times. Across the room, however, walked in a man of a very different kind. A businessman's sharp suit, polished shoes, a gold watch that gleamed under the chandelier lights. He was the type who carried himself like he owned the world. As he entered, he caught the eyes of a few people, nodding smugly, as if expecting admiration. He scanned the restaurant, and when he noticed the old man sitting alone, something about that sight made him smirk. He didn't see a human being worthy of respect. He saw an opportunity to elevate himself by tearing someone else down. As he settled into a table near the old man, he made sure his voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. "Look at this place," he said to his colleague seated with him. "Upscale, expensive, and yet they let just anyone walk in." He tilted his head toward the old man, laughing. The old man didn't react. He just lifted his spoon, stirred his soup, and continued eating. But the businessman wasn't finished. "I bet he's sitting here hoping someone else will pick up his bill. People like that don't belong in restaurants like this. They belong out there." He pointed toward the dark street beyond the window. Some diners chuckled uncomfortably, not because they agreed, but because arrogance can make people uneasy. The old man stayed quiet, but his silence wasn't weakness, it was patience. He looked at the businessman once, his eyes calm, almost studying him, and then returned to his coffee. The waiter came by to take the businessman's order. He didn't treat the waiter much better. "Make it quick," he snapped. "And make sure the steak is perfect. I don't eat like peasants." Again, his eyes flickered toward the old man. His colleague shifted uncomfortably, clearly embarrassed, but the businessman was too caught up in himself to notice. Time passed. The old man finished his soup, folded his napkin, and quietly stood. He asked the waiter for his check. But before the waiter could respond, the businessman called out, "No need. Let me cover it. Consider it my act of charity for the night." The restaurant fell silent for a moment. Some diners frowned. The old man simply looked at him, his gaze steady but not angry. He said in a calm voice, "That won't be necessary." "But thank you." The businessman laughed. "Suit yourself, old man. But remember, you don't belong here. Some of us work hard to earn our place." The old man nodded once, collected his coat, and walked out the door. To the businessman, it felt like victory. He leaned back in his chair, pleased with himself, unaware of what was about to happen. Not long after, the waiter returned with an envelope, handing it directly to the businessman. "Sir, this was left for you," he said. The businessman frowned. "For me? From who?" The waiter gestured toward the door. "The gentleman who just left." Curious, and perhaps a little annoyed, the businessman tore it open. Inside was a neatly folded receipt, his own. Not only had the old man paid for his modest meal, but he had also covered the businessman's extravagant order, including the expensive wine he had just opened. At the bottom of the receipt was a handwritten note. "True wealth isn't measured by what you wear, what you own, or where you eat. It's measured by how you treat others. Tonight, I've paid for your meal not because you deserved it, but because I wanted to remind you that kindness is the currency that never loses value." The businessman's face drained of color. He looked around the restaurant. Everyone had gone silent, eyes fixed on him, waiting to see his reaction. His smirk was gone. His arrogance melted into something unfamiliar: shame. His colleague leaned in and whispered, "Do you have any idea who that man was?" The businessman shook his head. His colleague's voice dropped lower. "That's Mr. Harrison, the retired founder of this very restaurant chain. He built this empire from nothing, with his own two hands. Without him, you wouldn't even have a seat here tonight." The businessman froze. The weight of the realization hit him harder than he could bear. The man he mocked for being out of place was the very man who created the space he sat in. The same man who could buy and sell everything he owned 100 times over, yet chose humility, simplicity, and kindness. As whispers spread through the restaurant, the businessman sat speechless, his fork untouched, his appetite gone. For the first time in years, he felt small, not because of his suit or his money, but because he realized true greatness doesn't shout. It doesn't mock. It doesn't belittle. True greatness sits quietly, teaches lessons without raising its voice, and walks away without needing applause. That night, the businessman got the lesson of his life. He never forgot the look in Mr. Harrison's eyes, the calm dignity of a man who didn't need to prove his worth. And from that day forward, the businessman changed slowly but surely. He learned to listen more, to treat people with respect, and to measure wealth not in dollars, but in decency. And so, the next time you walk into a restaurant, a store, or even just pass a stranger on the street, remember this story. You never know who you're talking to, what they've built, or the life they've lived. And even if you did know, it costs nothing to be kind. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful real-life lessons. And let me ask, have you ever seen arrogance humbled right before your eyes? Share your story in the comments. Until next time, remember, true wealth is measured not by what you keep, but by what you give.